Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. Today, I wanted to go over a topic about avoidance and how they test you, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why this happens before we get into the actual tests. Now, a lot of individuals who are with an avoidant individual, the reason why they may not be aware that they're being tested is because the avoidant individual does this a little bit more subconsciously, so they may not even be aware of it. Now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong because some of it is it's maladaptive. It can be abnormal. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I am saying that this is not necessarily healthy to some extent, because sometimes what ends up happening is due to these tests, they actually end up pushing their partner away, which is part of their subconscious wounds. It's how they deactivate, and that's how they cope. So that's a lot of times why a lot of avoidant individuals, it's hard for them to hold on to a partner because they always are trying to find ways for their partner to basically fail. And so I don't always necessarily agree with some of these things, but I still feel like I should share it with you guys because a lot of you guys are experiencing this. And just knowing will help you to be more aware of what's going on and also not take it so personally. This was requested, and tests are really common with avoidance, but I tend to not make too many videos about them because I don't want it to ever come across like I'm telling you how to pass those tests, because I feel like that's just not fair. But because it's very highly requested, I don't want to ignore what you're asking. So I am going to go ahead and make a video about this. Tests are very frequent in relationships with avoidance, unfortunately. And it's very different from the way an anxious preoccupied tests a partner. An anxious preoccupied individual, when they are testing a partner, they're doing it to get some form of a reaction out of their partner to validate an insecurity they may be feeling. They're looking for reassurance. Avoidant individuals, they are looking for reassurance, but not necessarily in the same way. They're trying to vet, is this person supposed to be in my life or not? Are you valuable enough? Because otherwise, I'm not going to invest in you then. It's kind of like a person being really, really picky about the kind of jobs that they apply to. But once they apply, it's almost like they themselves put their job on a probation. And that's a really unfortunate, that's a high bar to reach. And a lot of avoidant individuals, they don't like commitment anyway. So they might as well, this is just a way for them to get out of it to some extent. But also it's a way for them to make sure that you'll never hurt them, which I understand is not fair, right? And so that's why I mentioned kind of like the flip where the employee is putting their job on probation, which is not how it works in America. But that was the only example I had. So the very first one, and to be honest, actually, this one I don't think is very subconscious, because a lot of avoidance in my office, like a lot of my patients say that they genuinely do this. Like they purposely do this because they're afraid they want to know how you're going to react. And that is, they say no to you to see how you're going to react. This is much more common with male avoidance. More common with male, but female avoidance do this as well. And part of the reason why is a lot of my patients, they will say something like, I want to make sure that I don't have to roll over and just do everything their way. Because a lot of times they believe that their partner is going to be maybe unfair or always going to want things their way or have very unreasonable expectations. And they don't like being told no. And so they want to make sure that their partner is not one of those kind of people. So some have even told me, and this was coming from a male patient, something similar to this. They would say something like, when she showed me she's disappointed, but is still respectful and patient, it makes me realize she's a good person. And that's when I knew that she's the one for me. It sounds a little twisted, but basically the sweet spot for an avoidant, I'm not condoning this, I'm just telling you, is when they say no to you and you're disappointed, but still respectful of it. Because it makes them know that you can manage your own feelings, because disappointment is part of life. And they want to know, are you going to, crash out? Are you going to get upset? Are you going to get mad? Are you going to manipulate to get your way? Are you going to accept your emotions and try to find another solution that may not require manipulating or crashing out, but more so leaning towards acceptance, right? And so that's what they're vetting. Now, it's a good trait for a person to have, but the strategy might be a little bit unhelpful, because if you continuously tell your partner no, the partner might just be frustrated because they're being tested, or because you're not actually saying no. The avoidant is simply saying no to test them, but it is something that happens. That's actually why. And if anybody who's watching this video has watched any of my previous videos, this is another reason why I tell y'all, sometimes when avoidant says something, they're never going to do this, or I'm not going to do this, it's not always true. I'm not saying this with all avoidants, but a lot of them, or at least some of them, they say they're never going to do something so that they can have you back off, basically, but also to test how you're going to react. That's why you'll see a lot of avoidance. I'm not sure if you guys see it, but I do. Eventually what happens is they do commit. They do get married. They do all of the things they said they're never going to do. And the reason why is some of them were doing it as a test, right? Sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's not. And that's why I gave this one as the first one, because I feel like this one just needs to get out there. Because if I didn't mention this one in here, I would be doing you a disservice, because this one's very important, okay? The next one is they see how you react when they're away on like a business trip or something like that. Now, I don't think this one is unhealthy, really. Like, I think everyone should be able to do this as long as you're not planning the trip specifically to check the reaction, then I think it's fine. And typically that's what avoidants don't do. Typically it's that they happen to have a business trip, or they happen to have some sort of trip where they have to go away. Maybe you guys have to be separate for the holidays, or they just have a long trip, whatever it may be, or a vacation that they planned without you. And it's not necessarily to see your reaction, but what happens is while they're on that trip, they're watching how you're going to react. They want to see when they go on the trip, are you going to be able to handle that they won't be as talkative? Will you be understanding, or will you be demanding things that might not be reasonable to them, right? So an example could be, let's say we have a dismissive avoidant male, and let's say he often goes on business trips. Let's say he works in more of a financial type of job, where sometimes he has to go on certain meetings, regional type meetings, right? Where they, meet up, talk about their numbers, whatever it may be. And his partner doesn't have that type of job. Maybe we'll say, let's do a fearful avoidant. Let's say she's a nurse. Her job doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to say is it's a job that she doesn't have that traveling aspect. So this is something new for her in that sense, because it's not something she has to do. So typically he's going to be the one that's going away, rather than they both continuously go away from each other. It's always him typically going away. So that creates a dynamic, and that's actually where usually avoidants want to figure out, how are you going to react? Is she going to expect him to not go on these trips, even though he can't control it, just because she doesn't go on these trips? And a lot of times we're going to see how, let's say he goes on this trip. So in this example, and he mentions, I'm going to be on this trip. I might not be as available because I'm in meetings, I'm in meetings all day. And she could either say, okay, that's fair, whatever it may be, just, text me when you get to the hotel, or text me before bed just so I know you're okay. That's going to make him feel like, okay, she's understanding me, and she is appreciating that I have to do this for my job, and she understands that it's not that I don't care about her. Not that she even said that, but that's a message that he likely feels. Now, let's say she reacted another way. Let's say she said, you're always away, you're always going on business trips, are you sharing a hotel with somebody? I don't know what's going on. Please call me after your meeting. I feel really insecure. I wish that you wouldn't ignore me, right? And she's allowed to feel insecure, but there's another way to word it, right? But wording it that way makes him feel like, first of all, she doesn't trust him. Second, she doesn't realize that he can't control this business trip. And third, he probably can't talk after every meeting. They might be back to back. And he might not be in the best mood to talk to her, in the sense he might just be in a bad mood, or he might be busy, and he might not be able to give her a concrete conversation, which maybe he would prefer. But if she's feeling insecure, what's a way that we could modify it? That's something to always think about when you're feeling away, especially when your partner maybe is testing you. What is a way to bring up my concerns with, in a modification? And a good way to look at it is the timing of it. So perhaps after the trip, she could mention, I'm happy that you went on this trip, and I'm proud of you that you're doing so well. I was feeling a little bit insecure, and I just need some reassurance. I do believe you're loyal, but I've heard stories that people are on trips. I just want to verify you weren't, doing anything shady or nefarious behind my back. I certainly hope not, but it's something that I was feeling pretty insecure about, especially because you weren't texting me as much. I know you're busy, but can you shed some light because I'm feeling insecure? Something along that lines. You can clean it up as you like, but it basically shows, it's not you. Maybe it is, but it's more that it's me, right? Let's say, I'm playing the fearful avoidant in the story, right? That is the person that is feeling insecure because the avoidant probably didn't do anything, or maybe they did, but when you put it, the blame, not the blame, but the locus of the conversation onto yourself, what's happening is the partner is less likely to be in the defense, which allows you to feel you can get your needs met more appropriately, and your partner is more likely to reassure you in the way that you might need during that time. So that's a way to modify it. So avoidant individuals look out for how you react because sometimes they want to know, how are you going to react when I can't control the circumstance? Are you going to support me? Or are you going to be against me and try and change me, who I am, things that I cannot control, right? So that's a really important one. The next one. How would I say this? Yeah, this isn't even, I would consider this one a test though. A lot of avoidant individuals, they may tell you very, I want to say bluntly, very abruptly, what they need is the best way I'm going to word it. I'll give you an example so this is less confusing, but they're trying to see if you're willing to adjust. So it might not be something they that they need right away, but they're preemptively deciding to bring that up to see how you react. So let's say an avoidant may say, and this is genuine, by the way, it's out of fear, and they're basically doing it in fear that you're going to reject them. But there's a part of them somewhere that's also testing, how are you going to take it? Are you going to adjust, or am I going to be the only one who rolls over all the time, right? And are you going to always, take control of the situation? They're very afraid of that, right? They're afraid of losing control in relationships. So they may say something like, let's say we got a female avoidant and she's saying like, I don't know, I may not be the woman that you want. I know I'm not easy and I know I'm detached. If you can't accept that, this probably won't work. So very negative. There's a better way to say it, but that's why I wanted to give an example because avoidants kind of say it that way. So they're basically saying, this is a need that I have. I need to be myself right now, right? Like I can't change a lot of who I am. They need to be accepted. And see, that's why I mentioned it's kind of hard to explain because it's not like they directly say, I need to be accepted. Because they don't realize that's what it is. But they're trying to say, because they feel so flawed and they feel like people don't like them, they're saying, disclaimer, I'm not the best person. Like, you can walk out if you want to. Like, there's the door. I'm not telling you to stay here, but I am telling you I can't change today, right? And so a lot of individuals, when they hear this, they get very triggered. And avoidance, somewhere they're trying to see, are you going to accept me for who I am or are you going to react, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people do react especially because they always add on like, then this won't work or then I'm not the person for you. That triggers people because they think, especially anxious, preoccupied, they think the avoidant is saying that because the avoidant is secretly not wanting this relationship, even though that is not what it is at all. The avoidant is actually saying, I'm flawed. You're probably not going to like me. So if you want to leave, you can. So one way to understand they're just looking for adjustment is to say, you know what? I know that you're not an easy woman to be around. I know that there are other women who are maybe less detached than you are. But I like you for who you are. That's not all you are. And by the way, you're not as detached as you think you are. You've been there for me. You answer the phone. We've had great times together and you're trying. So I'm okay. You don't need to worry. I promise if I want to leave, I will tell you. Something like that. That's going to make any avoidant, not any avoidant, but typically an avoidant's going to feel better. Another example of this is, I can't give you what you want. This is very common, right? And it is a test. A lot of times it is. They may not realize it. Remember, I had mentioned they're subconscious, but you can say something very similar. Not similar necessarily, but I know what I want, right? I know what I want. If I don't like you, I will tell you and I will leave. You don't need to make that decision for me. You got to give yourself credit. You're not as bad as you think you are. I do like who you are. I get that you're detached. I get that you're not always available when I want you. But if I need something, I'll tell you and we can work it out. I'm not asking you to change, and I'll tell you. I will tell you if it's too much for me, but you got to trust me. Something along those lines will really ground an avoidant. And typically they're not going to feel so insecure about who they are around you, right? And the next one is they open up to you about something that they may not like to see if you judge them. Now, I don't think this is a bad test really at all. I think everybody should do this. I don't know if it's necessarily good to test somebody necessarily, but I think every person should be able to open up to see if their partner judges them. And so that's what the avoidant is trying to do, but they just do it a little bit more indirectly. But indirectly, emotionally, directly in a communication form. And let me explain that. They may say something a little bit blunt. I don't enjoy your cooking, right? And what they're actually trying to say, even though they are saying, I don't like your cooking, but they're trying to see, will you respect them or will you continue to put more food on their plate? I've talked about this probably multiple times to the point where you guys are probably like, why is this such a common theme in therapy? Y'all, I don't know. But I notice a lot with anxious individuals, for some reason, they don't like when an avoidant individual puts a certain type of boundary up. And it's not your fault, by the way. If you're anxious, I'm not saying it's your fault. Like it's confusing because a lot of people don't talk the way avoidants do, right? So an avoidant says, I don't enjoy your cooking. The anxious preoccupied, it's hard to swallow that pill. And so they try to mitigate and kind of manage that damage by, sometimes they combat it by saying, no, like, try this, or just, I promise you'll like it. Just have another plate. Much more common with older couples, by the way. So this might not be as common in our generation or my generation, sorry. But I see this a lot where like an avoidant individual is saying, I don't like your cooking, or I don't want to eat anymore. And the anxious partner takes that a little hard. But that's how they're testing you. They're wanting to see, will you judge them? Will you force them? Will you try and change them, right? Another one, which is really common, and this is more common with female avoidance, but I don't want you guys to think male avoidants don't do this as well, because this one also male avoidants do. I have a difficult time staying present in bed, like, during intimacy, because you seem insecure of your body. It makes me feel like you are not enjoying yourself. It discourages me a lot. This is a huge trigger for avoidance in the bedroom, and this is why they pull away. I really want to make a video about bedroom intimacy, but because I tend to talk in a lot of detail, I don't know if it's going to fly on YouTube, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to try and see if I can omit things. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But the avoidant individual is basically seeing, are you going to be insecure? Like, are you going to judge me for not being present? Are you going to feel like I'm attacking you? Or are you going to hear me? Are you going to hear me? When I tell you I don't enjoy your cooking, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just telling you this is how I feel. When I'm telling you I can't be present because you seem insecure and you reject me, and sometimes you move my hand or you push me off, I feel very discouraged. It's hard for me to be present and want to do that act with you. But I want to see, will you judge me? Will you say that I'm less of a whatever? Will you say I'm a picky eater? Will you say that? Or will you say, oh, what can I do to improve my cooking? Or, my apologies, maybe you should be the one that cooks. Whatever it may be. Or you're right, I am insecure about my body. What I would like is if you would give me reassurance in bed, that would help me to be more relaxed. They want a conversation. They want to see, are you going to respect them? Are you going to open up? Are you going to take this as a way to connect, or are you going to push them away, like judge them, right? So that's what the avoidant is looking for. The next one, and this one is kind of interesting because sometimes they do it on purpose, and I don't I don't think it's healthy, but it is true, right? These individuals are insecurely attached. Nobody's perfect, even secure individuals, but if you're an insecure individual, sometimes you do things that are truly they're not healthy in any means, and this is one of those. Sometimes they want to see how you react when they're busy or taking their time to answer messages. And yes, sometimes they do this on purpose. They don't realize they're not trying to be malicious, but they don't realize how bad it looks. But I've had genuinely patients that say, you know what, this is going really well. I want to see what happens if I take a little longer to answer my message. Like, they tell me directly without shame. This is going really well. I'm just not going to answer for a couple hours, and I'm going to see if she respects that. If she confronts me, if she asks me, or if she blows up my phone. Truly. And that's unfortunate, right? It's not the best. You could definitely say, You could definitely communicate, hey, I'm having fears that you're going to do this. Can you reassure me? So what they're actually deeply looking for is reassurance, but some avoidants are very proud. They don't want to admit they need reassurance, but that's truly what they're looking for. They want to reassure, are you going to manipulate them? Are you going to blow up their phone? Are you going to trick them? Are you going to try and change them? Are you going to cross their boundary? And so if they're doing this, one very easy way is to kind of let them have their time, but also if you notice that they're taking time to answer the message, you can still ask them. You don't want to play their game fully. It's not healthy. You could mention, I noticed that you're taking a little longer. Are you busy? I just want to make sure you're okay. Whenever you get a chance, just let me know. Something like that. Really simple. You didn't manipulate them. You didn't crash out, but you're also not letting them call the shots completely because you guys deserve to get your needs met as well. And this one is really not healthy. I don't appreciate this one. I'm not picking on avoidance, but it's not good to do something that can hinder growth in a relationship just to get reassurance, right? It's just the same as an anxious person trying to flirt with somebody to get their partner's attention. Like that doesn't feel good. That's not fair. You're introducing insecurity. This is very similar, right? Perhaps not as extreme, but it's still not healthy. And that's something that's really important. So you need to have a conversation about it at least. And I did forget to mention about the one before this. If they mention, I don't enjoy your cooking or present in bed. One thing just to add on, I don't remember if I said it. So it's very important that when an avoidant individual does open up to you, that you try to stay grounded and a little bit non-reactive. Because if you react, the avoidant individual is not going to be able to hear what you're saying or how you feel. They're going to be flooded by the emotion of the reaction. Because avoidant individuals, they can't manage emotions as easily as anxious individuals. And so it's hard for them to even understand what happens. So no matter if you find it offensive, because maybe they can come across blunt, you can still say how you feel, but manage your tone and emotions that are presenting, okay? Now, the next one is, they see how you react when they give you feedback or constructive criticism. I don't think this is bad because constructive criticism and feedback can be welcome in relationships, especially if you guys are close, depending on how often it is. But it is important to see how you react. So I think this is all right as long as it's not, manipulative. But an example could be, actually, this is pretty common. Let's say an anxious individual, she has friends, right? I hope that a lot of you guys have friends, but if you're a loner, that's cool. But she's got a lot of friends, right? And she is usually the one initiating and checking up on them and asking if they're okay. How are you doing emotionally, mentally, physically? What's going on with you? She really likes those deep conversations. And a lot of her friends, sometimes you see that they're maybe not as responsive or they pull away or sometimes they even get annoyed with her. And the avoidant individual is not trying to hurt, the partner. Let's say we got a male avoidant partner. He's not trying to hurt her. Actually, he's trying to help her. But somewhere he's also trying to see, are you going to take this criticism well? Are you going to take this feedback well? Or are you going to be in denial, right? And so an example is he might say, maybe your friends think you're coming across a little too much. Or too much is a bit of a negative term. I wanted to say needy, but I think that's even more negative. But those are the common ones I hear in sessions. So it's not like I'm saying that. It's more like that's what's common. But what's another way we could word it? It could be, maybe you're asking a little bit too repetitive, or maybe you just need to give them time to respond. Something along those lines, where an avoidant may say that. A lot of times when I see this is happening in session, the anxious or the partner, doesn't have to be anxious, they get upset or they deny it just straight up. No, I know I'm not like that. I know I'm not like that. And they might assign the blame onto their friend. And while there is an equal component, it's very important that avoidants want to see that you can, take feedback well, because they want this relationship to be equal and they want to feel like their needs are important. And so they gauge that. So if you find yourself where your partner is giving you feedback, as long as it's not too frequent and it doesn't overwhelm you, take it, right? Whatever they're saying, try and understand where they're coming from. Whether you agree or not, you don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree, but just hear what they're saying, because there might be something that's helpful for you. If you guys are in a relationship, they care about you. So it's really important, okay? And the last one, and this one is much more common with female avoidance, but I do see it with male avoidance. Sometimes what they do is they do tests to see when they tell you their insecurity. Are you going to embarrass them? Are you going to support them? Are you going to validate how they feel? Or are you going to say, yeah, that's something you should be insecure about? Like, they're trying to figure out, if you genuinely care about them is what they're feeling. And I'm going to give an example. Let's say we have a female avoidant. Let's say she's dismissive avoidant. She's got a male partner. Let's say he's fearful avoidant. It doesn't really matter. And let's say she's trying to see, is he going to support me or is he going to turn against me at this moment? And let's say she said, my dad's very overbearing, right? Like he always, tells me to watch what I'm eating or how much makeup I'm wearing. And I feel really suffocated and really controlled. And I feel like, I'm an adult and I feel like he shouldn't be saying those things to me because I'm not a kid anymore. And it makes me feel like, maybe I'm doing too much or maybe I'm trying to get attention because that's how he implies it. And it makes me feel really embarrassed. So she just opened up an insecurity while still mentioning somewhere that she probably doesn't agree with her dad. Now she's trying to figure out, is her partner going to agree with dad? Oh, he's your father. I'm sure he means well, which is, it's a valid response, but that's going to pull her away. What she's actually looking for, and she should be direct about this, by the way, but sometimes they don't know. It's subconscious. But what would make her happy is she wants to hear, I get that that's really frustrating. Your dad, I agree. I think your dad is very overbearing. You know how your dad is. Now, I don't think he means it in a bad way, but that sounds really suffocating. But I do want to tell you, I don't think when you're wearing makeup or if you're eating too much that it looks bad or poorly. Like, I don't think you're trying to get attention or you're trying to do anything. To me, you're just being yourself. I like your makeup and I think I appreciate your eating habits. I think everything's fine. If I didn't, I would tell you, but I don't really agree with your dad. Something like that. And immediately her insecurity, she was trying to test it. Now she feels like, okay, I can trust this person. So if I do ever open up about my childhood or my dad or whatever, I know that I have him in my corner, my partner, right? The fearful avoidant. So that's something that I wanted to share. I hope this video made sense. Please subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one.